In engineering physics, we shall take up the discussion on something related to atomic structure. If we remember well, both at a high school level as well as undergraduate level, we were introduced to the basics of matter study with respect to atomic structure, starting from Dalton's postulates to Thomson's watermelon model, leading to the concept of Rutherford model of atom, followed by Bohr model of atom, and then Sommerfeld of atom, leading to quantum numbers. But there at a high school level, we were only given basics of understanding the basic postulates. How the postulates have been arrived at, what are the models adopted by various scientists to give the modern atomic structure, and why those formulas have come, what are the mathematical approaches adopted. These things were not explained at high school level. So the basic purpose of studying atomic structure at engineering level is to understand the detailed mathematical approaches adopted by various scientists to arrive at the modern atomic structure. So in that, if you look at the historical aspects here, in ancient Greek philosophy, the word atom was used to describe the smallest bit of matter. Atom was thought to be indestructible. Indestructible means you can't destroy, because the Greek word for atom means not divisible. Even in India, if you look at the Vedic times or Vedic period, they had a concept. Our ancient rishis in ancient Hindu mythology, they had a concept of Anu, which means molecule, and Paramanu, which is nothing but atom. One of the rishi named Kanand had mentioned the concept of Anu and Paramanu. The matter as a whole was divided into 5 tattvas, what we call as elements, known as, in Sanskrit they call it as Prithivyapas Tejo Vayurakasat. That means the earth, the fire, the water, the space, and the air. These are the 5 basic elements or tattvas. It was presumed that all the material things constituted of these 5 elements mixed in a particular proportion. Now, when you look at the experimental proofs through modern scientific tools, the thinkers and the philosophers of that time argued their assertions as they were conceived. It was after the discovery of current electricity that several new techniques like discharge of electricity through gases, heated filaments, X-rays, and so on could become possible. The foundations of the modern atomic structure were laid with the help of the law of conservation of mass and law of definite proportions. In that journey, the first thought came through Dalton's theory. In 1808, in the beginning of 18th century, the English chemist John Dalton proposed that matter consisted of tiny indivisible particles known as atoms. In fact, Dalton was not the first person to propose the existence of atoms. But what distinguished Dalton from others was that he presented the evidence for the atom's existence. So if you look at the founding principles of Dalton's theory of atom, we can understand them as something like this. According to Dalton's principle, founding principle, he just mentioned 5 or 4 evidential points. One is, according to him, matter consists of indivisible entities called atoms. Second one is, all atoms of a given element are identical in respect of mass and all other physical properties. The third point mentioned by Dalton was different elements have different kinds of atoms having different masses. The fourth one is atoms are indestructible and retain their identities even in chemical reactions. And the fifth assumption made was the formation of a compound from elements occurs through the combination of atoms of unlike elements in whole number ratios. So for majority of that century, atomic theory of Dalton dominated the scientific world. Then around 1879, Sir J.J. Thomson, we know, discovered the concept called electron. And he found that electrons had a negative charge and negligible mass. And Thomson proposed a model of an atom which was known as plum pudding or current bun model, represented like this. We have studied at high school level something called watermelon model, fibrous mass, particles embedded like seeds in a fibrous mass of a watermelon model. That was what was our understanding at high school level. So let us understand that watermelon model of Thomson from an engineering or a scientific angle. It was named as plum pudding or current bun model. According to this model, atom consists of sphere of radius approximately 1 angstrom unit. This is 1 angstrom unit, 10 power minus 10 meters. The positive and negative particles fill the whole sphere uniformly in such a way that the atom is electrically neutral. This was Thomson's thinking. I'm just recapping. Thomson, while proposing this plum pudding or current bun model, thought that atom consists of a sphere of radius of approximately 1 angstrom. The positive and negative particles fill the whole sphere uniformly in such a way that atom is electrically neutral. This is the diameter of the atoms, which is approximately 1 angstrom unit. Now, Thomson's model could explain the stability and electrical neutrality of an atom. Fair enough. It could also explain the process of ionization of atoms and residual charge on atoms. But however, Thomson's model could not explain the emission of spectral lines from atoms and the large angle of scattering of alpha particles by heavy atoms. These were not able to be explained, which later Rutherford through his experiments explained that. Because Thomson model of atom, which was known as plum pudding or current bun model, Thomson thought that model consists of a sphere of approximately 10 power minus 10 meters or 1 angstrom radius, and the positive and negative particles fill the whole sphere uniformly in such a way that atom is electrically neutral. Therefore, to that extent, neutrality could be explained and the process of ionization of atoms and residual charges in atoms was explained. But it failed in explaining the emission of spectral lines from atoms and large scattering angles. So this was the drawback. Now, the current concept of atomic structure, what we are talking and what we are learning as modern physics, this current concept of atomic structure is basically based on the model proposed by another great personality whom we know as Ernest Rutherford. Earlier around 1911 or so, Ernest Rutherford along with this associate Geiger and Marsden conducted several experiments with alpha particle. Alpha particle is nothing but the helium nucleus. Conducted several experiments with the alpha particle emission from radioactive materials. And he found that most of the alpha particles were able to penetrate through the atoms without any deviation or without any diffraction. Now this indicated that most of the volume inside the atom is hollow. So to conclude it, Rutherford repeated the experiment systematically with gold atoms as target, and with the help of two of his students or associates, whomever you may call them, Geiger and Marsden, he conducted those experiments. And the experimental setup adopted by Ernest Rutherford looks like this. So the radioactive material is placed inside. It has got a lead shield, radioactive material is kept here, and there is a pinhole here through which the rays are passing through. And this is the scatter angle, this is the foil, gold foil what we have taken. There is a detector here. Now if you see the operators, the radioactive material is placed inside the lead shielding, emits alpha particles of high energy. These are made to pass through a narrow pinhole screen to make a fine beam, to a fine particle beam, which is bombarded in a very thin gold foil. On striking the gold foil screen, the alpha particles are scattered through different angles. The scattered particles are detected with the help of zinc screen. Zinc screen means zinc sulfide, ZNS screen, that will give you fluorescent spikes when alpha particle fall on it. That means the number of such spike is counted in a dark room with the help of ZNS screen as well as microscope detector. Let me brief out Rutherford model of atom proposal and the corresponding experimental setup adopted by Rutherford and his associates. Now what he has done, the radioactive material is placed inside a lead shielding that emits alpha particles of higher energy. So these are made to pass through a narrow pinhole screen to make fine particle beam, which is bombarded on a very thin gold foil. On striking the gold foil screen, the alpha particles are scattered through different angles. So these scattered particles are detected with the help of zinc sulfide screen that gives fluorescent spikes when alpha particles fall on it. So the number of such spike is counted in a dark room with the help of zinc screen and the microscope detector. This whole experimental arrangement was placed in a vacuum chamber to increase the range of alpha particles, because alpha particles are absorbed in air and to travel long distances to make such experiments feasible. This arrangement was made by his associates Geiger and Marsden. Rutherford, along with his associates Geiger and Marsden, sat for hours together, according to history, and days together to watch and record these tiny spikes of light through microscopes. If Thomson's model of atomic structure was true, then the result of scattering should show, in fact, less than 4 degrees of scattering. But that was not observed to be. These guys have observed something else, what was later named as alpha ray scattering. This is the schematic representation of Rutherford's alpha ray scattering process. Now these are the incident alpha particles. This is the thin gold foil on which the rays are incidenting, and these are getting scattered like this. Now this angle of scattering, according to Thomson model of atomic structure, it should have less than 4 degrees, but it's not less than 4 degrees. Therefore, Thomson's model was discarded based on this Rutherford's proposed alpha ray scattering experiment, which was later popularly known as alpha ray scattering experiment. Now, if you observe this, most of the alpha particles pass through the gold foil with little or no deflection, but some were found to scatter at larger angles and few even at 180 degrees also. In his experiment, it was found that most of the alpha particles passed through the gold foil, with little sometimes or no deflection also. But in some cases, some were found to scatter at very large angles and very few or have scattered even at 180-degree angle also, perfectly like this. That is just turned to move in opposite directions in straight lines, like this. So this was an observation contrary to their expectations. So therefore, this anomalous scattering led to an explanation which later became the basis of nuclear model of atom or Rutherford's model of atom. This has dramatized or revolutionized the concept of Rutherford. Earlier thought was there will not be much deviation of not more than 4 degrees. But here it was found that some are scattered, some are even not passed through, some are even not deflected, and sometimes even scattering gone to an extent of 180 degrees. That means some of the scattered particles have just turned to move in opposite directions in a straight line also. So this was observation which was contrary to their expectations. So therefore this anomalous scattering led to such an explanation which later became the basis of nuclear model of atom or otherwise known as Rutherford's model of atom. According to him, the positive charge and almost the entire mass of an atom are located at the center of the atom. So therefore this dense and central part of an atom is what is termed later as nucleus. To support the theory, the size of a nucleus was also determined, and it was suggested that the size should be the order of 15 into 10 power minus 15 meters. So compared to the size of an atom, which was just 1 angstrom according to Thomson's model, this is very small. Therefore, most of the space inside the atom must be empty. In order to neutralize the electrical charge, the nucleus must be surrounded by negatively charged electrons in such a way that the total negative charge on the electrons is equal to the total positive charge on the nucleus. So for the stability of an atom, Rutherford assumed that electrons revolve around the nucleus in fixed orbits similar to the revolution of planets around the sun. These orbits can be at any distance from the nucleus. I shall quickly recap. What Rutherford has observed is most of the alpha particles are passed through the gold foil with little or no deflection, but some were found to scatter at larger angles and few even at 180 degrees, that is just turned to move in opposite direction in a straight line, which observation became contrary to their expectation. So this anomalous scattering led to an explanation which later became the basis of nuclear model of atom, later popularly known as Rutherford model of atom. According to this experiment, whatever observations that were made, Rutherford tried to represent the model of an atom like positive charge and almost the entire mass of an atom are located at the center of the atom. This dense and central part of an atom is what is termed as nucleus later. To support this theory, the size of the nucleus was also determined, and it suggested that the size should be of the order of 15 into 10 power minus 15 meters compared to size of 1 angstrom. This is a very small one. Therefore, most of the space inside the atom must be empty. So in order to neutralize the electrical charge, the nucleus must be surrounded by negatively charged electrons in such a way that the total negative charge of electrons is equal to the total positive charge on the nucleus. So for the stability of an atom, Rutherford assumed that electrons revolve around the nucleus in fixed orbits similar to the revolution of planets around the sun. These orbits can be at any distance from the nucleus. But there are certain drawbacks which we have to understand as Rutherford's model found to give some answers to some of the questions that were not answered earlier compared to Thomson's theory. But when it is being looked in detail, there are certain problems. Like, according to Rutherford's theory, there are infinite number of orbits that are possible. Like this number of orbits are possible, according to him, which was not true. And the certain drawbacks, if you look at it, one is the inherent instability of atoms. The other is the inability to explain the line spectra. Because the electrons revolving around the nucleus must be accelerated to move in orbits, which indicate that they must continuously emit radiation and constantly lose energy and follow a spiral orbit to merge with the nucleus. So an atom with the Rutherford structure should be highly unstable then, and therefore it should destroy itself within a time of 10 power minus 9 seconds. Further, it cannot explain the earlier experimental observations like emission and absorption spectra from different materials. So therefore, there is an automatic collapse of orbits as per his theory while emitting the radiation continuously. So this was the basic drawback. But anyway, the famous thing is the alpha ray scattering, because that has opened the doors for further understanding of modern atomic structure. So let us understand the theoretical part involved in Rutherford scattering experiment. In order to precisely determine the parameters that are involved in the scattering process, the mathematical estimation of scattering angle and the probabilities of scattering should be made. So the encounter of alpha particles with the nuclei of heavy elements like gold is assumed to be only elastic and electrostatic. That means other forces of interaction are ignored. Now if you want to see the geometry of scattering, that can be shown like this. Let us presume that an alpha particle of mass m and velocity v0 approaches a stationary nucleus of positive charge. Atomic number is represented as capital Z. Therefore, charge of an electron is E. Therefore, positive charge means plus Ze. Z is the atomic number of element, E is the electronic charge along a trajectory. The path of the alpha particle is therefore a hyperbola. So therefore, this BO and OC will be asymptotic to the lines. It is presumed that mass of the nucleus is so large that it does not get displaced under Coulombian repulsion of alpha particle, and the total angular momentum of the system remains constant. So let this OA be S, which is nothing but the minimum distance of alpha particle from the nucleus during its trajectory. This distance is what is called distance of closest approach. And because angular momentum is conserved along the trajectory of the alpha particle, we can take mass is m, initial velocity v, and this s, which is nothing but an impact parameter across, we can write mv0 by b, which is nothing but mvs. This is angular momentum. No? Normal momentum is linear momentum, what we call as mass into velocity. This is mass into velocity into linear distance. Or here it is angular, it becomes angular distance, so it is nothing but s. Therefore, mv0 b be equal to mvs. Therefore, from that v you can calculate by striking of m on either side. V will become v0 b by s. Okay? V is the velocity of the alpha particle after scattering. So there is an alpha particle. There is nothing but helium nucleus and the normal element. So there is a repulsive force acting on that. So there are two electrons. Helium nucleus means it will have two electrons. So Z is the nucleus we are representing, which is being struck by this alpha particle. Therefore, if you take the repulsive force between them, then the repulsive force can be represented like this. Zg is the nucleus total charge. This is the helium total charge. Like Coulombian law is being applied to calculate the repulsive force, or is the distance between them. So that therefore, if V is the velocity of the alpha particle scattering under this particular force, the force magnitude would be 1 by 4 pi epsilon into Ze into 2e by r square. Since V equal to V0 b by s. Now, at a particular point, let us calculate the kinetic energy. This point if you take at a point A, the kinetic energy is half mv square and the potentializing energy is nothing but the repulsive force. Because here R is nothing but S. Therefore, repulsive force will be the potential energy and the kinetic energy will be half mv square. When we represent that mathematically, like this, kinetic energy is half mv square, potential energy is this. Now, since at that point R equal to S, we can substitute R equal to S here in the formula. It will become 1 by 4 pi epsilon into ZE to E by S, because R equal to S. Now, from law of conservation of energy, the sum is always constant. Total energy is always constant. Therefore, half mv naught square is equal to half mv square plus 1 by 4 pi epsilon into ZE to E by S. So, this is law of conservation of energy. So, you can take on the right hand side V equal to V naught D by S. That value you can, here in this equation, if you see the velocity, you can represent it as, the velocity of alpha particle V can be represented as V equal to V naught B by S. By substituting V equal to V naught B by S in this equation, this 2, you can strike it off with 4 here. This will become 1 by 2. Instead of 1 by 4 into 2, it will become 1 by 2. So therefore, you can simplify that as half mv naught square equal to half mv square plus 1 by 2 pi epsilon naught into ZE square by S. Now for V equal to V naught B by S, if you substitute, then this half mv naught square will become half m into V naught B by S whole square plus 1 by 2 pi epsilon naught ZE square by S. Now half mv naught square is nothing but Ke half mv square only. That is half mv naught square B square by S square. Expand this and 1 by 2 pi epsilon naught ZG square by S. Now multiply both sides by converse of this. Here you have half mv square. So multiply both sides by 2 by mv square. This will become 1. So therefore that will become 1 is equal to, here mv square by 2 multiplied by 2 by mv square. Therefore it will become, it gets cancelled. So it will become B square by S square plus ZE square by pi epsilon naught mv square S will remain here. Now put this ZE square pi epsilon mv square as P. Then this equation becomes 1 is equal to B square by S square plus PS by S square. Now take LCM and cross multiply. S square will become B square plus PS. And of course, you can write it as B square equal to S square minus B square S PS. S you can take as common. S equal to B square equal to S into S minus P. Now from geometrical point of view, this equation we can show it as a hyperbola. This is the geometry of a hyperbola. So from that hyperbola, you can calculate the asymptotes and find the angle of P as 2b cot theta. S as b cot theta by 2 length, therefore. Therefore, theta will become naturally tan inverse 2b by P. Now this equation gives the angle of scattering of alpha particle theta in terms of impact parameter B. This is what we need to understand about alpha ray particle scattering experiment of Rutherford. If we summarize today's session, we started with the historical aspects and then tried to look at Dalton's approach and Dalton's theory. From there, we moved to understand the Thomson's plum pudding and model of atom and its drawbacks. Then we tried to look at Rutherford assumptions and the experimental setup made by Rutherford and his associates, namely Geiger and Marsden, and their experimental observations followed by alpha ray scattering process, the schematic approach, and the schematic understanding of Rutherford's model of atom, followed by the drawbacks of Rutherford. In spite of that, the alpha ray particle experiment has helped us to calculate the scatter angle. Based on that, it has given the method of obtaining the atomic number also. For different angles of scattering, Z can be calculated. That is the biggest advantage of Rutherford alpha ray scattering experiment. And then we tried to look at understanding the theory of Rutherford scattering with the help of the schematic approach that explained about the alpha particle trajectory and the impact parameter, based on which mathematically we have seen how the scatter angle theta can be calculated with the help of an equation. This is what we have seen in this session. So in the next session we shall look at some emission and absorption spectra, and that led to the drawbacks of Rutherford for then how it has helped the Bohr model of atom to be in place. This is what we have discussed in this session, and emission and absorption spectra and Bohr model will be discussed in the next session.